listening to the Ice Prep Podcast. Here's your hosts, Bryan and Pat.
Well, welcome everybody to the Ice Prep Podcast, and I'm going to throw this one at Pat. He's not sure about this, or he has no idea. Special edition on CJBK this weekend. Going to get the full show, just with a little bit of a slight ending change. Ooh. So getting kind of the full hour slot on the radio this weekend.
That's exciting. I didn't know we were doing that.
Yeah, the Leafs game, the pregame doesn't start until 7 o'clock. So it was like, well, you know what? Let's have a little bit more hockey mixed in there. So we will, of course, talk that a little bit later as the Leafs are taking on the Red Wings with the three of the best rookies in the league in one game. That's usually pretty fun.
Yeah, no, that'll be an interesting game. Are they playing at home?
No, that one's in Detroit.
Okay, so you are going to be up against Bertuzzi. So full lineup for them. But Leafs, obviously, I think everybody knows it won't be a full lineup for them with Muzzin out.
Well, we don't have it on our. I guess you kind of do have the LTIR on there, but yeah. we can start off with that. I'm fine with talking about.
Oh yeah, no,
everything
I really
that's kind of going on there.
Yeah.
Jokingly, I said to Pat when Austin Matthews ran his face into the crossbar, "Oh, looks like they're finally going to get some LTIR cap space." And then he came back, and then a few games later, Jake Muzzin out, and then of course the Leafs go within just shy of like a couple. What was it, like $1,000 or something like that to the cap?
It was just under 10,000. Yeah.
So the closer you are to the cap, when you put a player on LTIR, you get that much more back. So they get the full kind of salary of what Jake Muzzin is while he's on LTIR. Don't be surprised if we don't see him again until the playoffs. You can call that one the Mark Stone, Patrick Kane, Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos special at this point. The only thing that's in common with that is two of those have won a Stanley Cup in doing so, but they're worth $8+ million instead. It sucks for the Leafs because Muzzin is probably their best defender all around. When he is on, the team plays better because he has such a heavy presence. He forces the other team to pay attention. Yes, you can see Riley get those highlight reel goals. He had an end-to-end one earlier on in the week. TJ Brodie is probably their best defensive defenseman that they've had in I don't know how long. But when Muzzin is playing for the Leafs, they are a much different team than when he's not.
So I am going to say something that's overtly controversial. And I think that Muzzin is a key problem for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I am taking a very different point of view on this than you are. And that is because, as you said, the Leafs are substantially better when Muzzin is on the ice. Great. That's not a good thing. If one person is that level of like holding and supporting up a team and you lose them, that's not good. He is a problem for the Leafs because they rely on him too much. They aren't sitting there, focusing on trying to create more stability because they're like, we've got Muzzin. Muzzin's good. He's injured almost every single playoffs. Whether he's
both playoffs, he's been injured for them.
Exactly. So like right there, liability, and nobody's talking about that. He may not be back in time for the playoffs. I know that obviously the joke is, LTIR. I called it literally in our prep sheet. I called it the LTIR Jamboree. That's the official term for it now. So when people are doing the Jamboree of LTIR stuff like Vegas is currently doing, sure, you kind of laugh about it, but I mean, it's still obviously people's health is still on the line there. So that's just, I hope that Muzzin is back and healthy. Nobody deserves to have any sort of concussions or anything like that. It's scary. But at the same time, he may not be healthy for the playoffs. And now they're in scramble mode. Now they're going to have to give up so much to try and replace or figure out a different solution to Muzzin being out. And they're going to be doing this battle year after year after year after year. If I was Dubas, I would be looking at this going, yet another year, our team is going to suffer. I think we need to move him and figure out a different solution because he is too relied upon in comparison to any other defensive pairing. Talk about any other team where one defenseman is the pillar, and when they're gone, the whole team's garbage.
New Jersey?
Okay, well, I don't want to be too mean, but the team isn't great with...
Chris Letang?
I wouldn't even say that.
Adam Fox?
I wouldn't say that.
Quinn Hughes?
Okay, maybe Quinn Hughes.
There's a few but
I
those
wouldn't
are all
say
more
no.
offensive pillars compared to, because those teams rely on them to help generate offense. I get where you're coming from on this one, but it's like an argument complaining that, oh, you have too much of a good thing, so let's get rid of the good thing because it's causing too much good. Yes, it is. I compared this one. I said this one to you, thinking as a Jays fan back, 7-8 years ago. Jake Muzzin is literally Troy Tulowitzki. He is this player that is phenomenal. When he is on, you can tell that he is there, but for whatever reason, it just feels like at times made of glass, and then they go out and it's like, well, we lost our all-star shortstop, or we lost our
Isn't he a first
fantastic defenseman. Tula was a shortstop, wasn't he?
I thought he was first base.
Okay,
Okay,
You're
now we're
gonna make me look it
debating
up.
Toronto Blue Jays. But while you're looking it up, it's the heavy reliance on
Shortstop, thank you.
Oh, okay. There you go. I was thinking of someone completely different, but
I just remember the play of him getting hurt, going back, and them bumping into Pilar, and it was like the weirdest fall you've ever seen.
oh right, yeah, you're right.
And then he ended up breaking a few ribs from that or something like that, and then he couldn't come back quite the same way. That's, to me, pulling another sport in, it's a perfect comparable, and it's also Toronto, so it's an even more perfect comparable because it's this player that is such a key part to a championship DNA that just seemingly gets injured at the worst possible times, and then you're scrambling to try and fill that gap, which is pretty much what you said.
But I would argue against that he's a key part of a championship DNA because he's not. He hasn't been for them. They want him to be, but he hasn't been. And if you have a person like him that you rely on so heavily, then you're just like, okay, well, we don't have to worry too much about this other pairing because, we've got, Brody and Muzzin and we've got that. But Muzzin is so heavily relied upon to be healthy. He clearly has not been healthy all season. He hasn't looked good this year. In comparison to previous years, both on the Leafs and any other team he played for, he has not looked nearly as good as he has in the past. Is it regression or is he injured? I'm willing to bet he's probably injured. So he's playing through injuries. He's not playing at 100%. And this person that you're expected to rely on, it's like having a cane with half the wood cut out. At some point, it's going to snap. You're sitting there relying on this person, and he's giving 150% of a body that's only able to give 60.
Well, maybe this is one of those things where it's like Mark Stone, that because of Eichel able to rest his back, that maybe this is what he needs.
Well, who's the Eichel then?
He might be able to get, 2.5 months potential of rest and rehab and recovery. The Leafs would have to go on a Philadelphia Flyers level absolute collapse to not make the playoffs at this point. So why not? You know that there's still another move happening there. That Lyubushkin isn't the only defender that's coming to the Leafs, especially now with Muzzin out. Mm-hmm. So
who are they giving up though? Who do they give up?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
They've got a few players because also, if I remember correctly, isn't Nick Robertson potentially healthy-ish sometime soon? And he's one of those players for the Leafs.
He's back.
Is he back?
Yeah, he's with the Marlies. But do you really think that they're going to trade him? I don't think Dubas ever would. I feel like...
No, not to trade. It means that somebody on their roster, like Pierre Engvall, for example, or Mikheyev, who right now his value is finally back up to a good spot. He's good on the PK. He's fast. Everything else, he seems to just... his luck is going to run out on just like magically having the puck go off of him in weird ways to get a goal. Look at how the Leafs have been built by Dubas, and then especially when you bring Keefe in, they would probably much rather have Nick Robertson playing on that team than they would having Pierre Engvall or Mikheyev.
No.
Robertson can slot up to the second line. Those other two, they're going way down.
If you look at the team that he's currently back building, so he brought on Kyle Clifford, you've got Muzzin, Lyubushkin. Those aren't tiny people. I think he's building a stronger team, like physically stronger, not point getting stronger. He's building that sort of strength up for the playoffs, which means he's going to be looking for an equivalent. Obviously, on defense, that's what he's going to be doing. But at the same time, why would you take out somebody with the height, the speed, and the strength? Because you can't deny the strength of Mikheyev and Engvall. They may look like weird giraffes with skates on, but they have more strength than Nick Robertson. They don't need goal scoring. You are paying so much money for goals on the top line.
Except for in the playoffs last year, that's where their issue happened. Because their goal scoring just ran dry. Obviously, that was because of a center who's now playing for the LA Kings. But you can look at I
just don't think
there are so many things with the Leafs that you can argue all day about it.
Oh, yeah.
There are. It's just so.
Well, it's a rock.
Imagine being a Leafs, like we're not Leaf fans, and this is how we get talking about it.
I know, but it's just I look at their lineup and I look at their assets, and it's just like I don't know what else. I don't know if they can get the quality of defender that they would want without hemorrhaging something big. So if they are going to be doing that, I would not be blown away if they went to Arizona yet again, and they talked about Chychrun, and they look at salary cap retention.
The only thing with Chychrun, though, is I guess the cap doesn't matter anymore. That's the thing, and you're more than willing to be like, here, take a first plus because there is the contract associated with it.
Exactly.
The only thing with Chychrun, though, is it's not the type of player they necessarily need.
He's another Riley.
That would also that would also
defender
mean
and a good. He's not even that aggressive on attack, though. He doesn't get a lot of points.
Well, not too many people on that team do, but that would mean that you've got TJ Brodie, Muzzin, Riley, and then potentially Chychrun all locked up for a few years as your top four. Liljegren and Sandin, who, let's be honest, Liljegren has,
he's been
like,
looking
both
good.
Of those, they're still young, they have their moments, but when they're on, you can see the promises there, but you can also see that they are still a little inexperienced. Defensemen take longer in the NHL. Mm-hmm. That is like a proven fact unless you're the elite of the elite, and there's only been a few of those in the last few years.
Yeah.
If you're somebody criticizing the Leafs and you look at the team next year and you go, okay, so they've got Riley, potentially Chychrun if he comes over, which I think I agree with you. They have the space for him now.
Yeah.
TJ Brodie and Jake Muzzin as your locked in top four.
That's scary.
Costing just over probably $22-23 million. I think you're happy. And then it's just hoping that you can figure out your goaltending, which seems to be half the league's problem.
Yeah.
So you're right. Years ago, Dubas, his whole thing was, I'm going to take only from the LA Kings. Mm-hmm. Brought in Muzzin, brought in Campbell. They've done that in the past with Anaheim way back when. I believe there was a second player as a part of when they got Freddie Anderson.
Yep.
They like to go back, even before Dubas, to stick with the same team. It's where Richie was last year.
Yeah. No, I mean...
So I wonder, because his name has been, the last little bit, ever since Muzzin went on, he was injured. You're starting to see rumblings of Chychrun's name and the Leafs being more and more. So, and the more looking at it, like, that is a scary top four if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, that is the one thing the Leafs have never had in my memory, is a top four defensive pairing that you can look at and be like, yeah, that sucks. I don't want to face that.
Contending for right now, they don't have a cup contending for, because even if You've got Riley, Muzzin, and Brody healthy. That fourth, is it Dermott? I don't know. Is it Sandin? I don't know. Is it Liljegren? I don't know. Like,
it sure as heck isn't Hull, who every single time he steps on the ice, every Leaf fan is screaming at their TV.
Well, how about this then? You package up Hall with the first round pick next year, if that's available, if not the following year. Probably another pick, and then maybe even another young gun for Chychrun, because that's what Arizona wants. Arizona wants young talent, and they want cheap talent, and they want picks.
And they also need players that are signed. That's the thing, because next year they do not have a lot of like actual players on their roster. Chychrun still has quite a few years left on his contract. He's 23.
What a great scoop that would... Like, if the Leafs pick up Chychrun, how about this? I will throw this out to the world right now. If the Leafs pick up Chychrun before the trade deadline or on the trade day, I will get a Toronto St. Pat's Chychrun jersey. I don't think they will. It would be the right move if they could do it, but I don't think they're going to be able to. If they can, if they get him, in my opinion, they are cup ready. They are cup contenders. I know that seems ridiculous to say he is that key piece, but
no, he is.
He really truly can be.
Like, I had forgotten that they had locked up Brody the way that they did, and then with that, what does every Cup team the last few years have in common? They've got that defense wins.
Yep.
Like, you have to have that top four. Look at St. Louis's run. Look at the last two for Tampa. You go back, Washington kind of won it because Holtby and Ovi and Kuznetsov kind of just all went ridiculous mode, but they still had the defense, and they still, like, that one was not as much the whole top four, but I'm kind of with you on that. It took us, almost 15 minutes to get to this point, that from being like, well, the Leafs with Muzzin, there's the problem. However, if they keep Muzzin and Chychrun comes in, suddenly that is then so much scarier.
Yeah.
You don't want to be facing that team.
No, not one bit.
It's like Carolina when their defense is healthy. Like right now, Tony DeAngelo expected to be out for like a month. Mm-hmm. When their defense is healthy, you look at that team and go, what do you do?
Yeah, like, there's a reason why defensemen have been so sought after. Like, you look at free agency, the asking price for defensemen last year. It was absurd. That's why Justin Hall got signed for so much. And like, as much as I think that Dermott's a fantastic defenseman, I really do think that he's a very good third-line defenseman. Absolutely. Same with Sandin, same with Liljegren, especially when you've got that lineup in front of you. But they're not there. But the nice thing is if they have one of those three guys, of Liljegren, Sandin, or Dermott, on that third-line pairing, when you go on PP2, you might put Chychrun out there, but you're going to have Riley on the first PP, and then I would put Sandin on the second. Kid's got a shot. He's got a lot of speed. He's got no problem going into the corners, on like rushing forward and pushing past the blue line. So you have two good QBs for the power play. You don't have to exhaust Brody, Chychrun, and Muzzin. Come on.
Yeah, and the Leafs are one of those teams that can physically rock 8 forwards total over their 2 power play units and be fine, because Jason Spezza is playing like he's in his early 30s again when he's out there.
Not
and
like
it also
Pavelski,
gives time
though.
for some of those. Yeah. Oh my God. The more I looked into that after last week, I was just blown away as to how unreal of a season Pavelski is having. And talk about, for the most part, just like a type week, because it's just a Lyubushkin trade.
Yeah.
And then all the shenanigans with waivers happening, including he's it sucks that he's not back with the Leafs, who really wanted him, but he's also playing with one of the top scorers in the league right now and a bona fide Leaf killer in Winnipeg. So I mean, if he can play half decently there, I don't think he gets waived, and he probably gets offered more than league min next year. So
I just really hope that he doesn't get waived again and picked up again. That kid, just like, at least give him 1 year, one solid year in a place that he can just at least get an apartment. Like, I feel so bad for him. Clearly he's talented, he's sought after, which is a nice thing to be in the league. But at the same time, to move to 4 teams, Toronto, Montreal, Vegas, Toronto, Winnipeg, 5 moves 1 year. That's or technically 4 moves in 1 year, but
and then having to report at times to the AHL teams because that's where he was going to. It's just one of those weird situations. But he's in Winnipeg now. Seems like he's getting minutes there, so
good for him.
Good for him. I think move on from talking about how the Leafs can fix things because we're clearly the best GMs on the planet.
Obviously. I mean, we could go right into just the trade bait.
We were talking about the trades, and strangely enough, on the trade bait, we didn't have Chikrin there. I don't know why.
Because I don't know how to spell his name. There's too many Y's.
I would have just put Chicklets, and I would have known what you meant.
Chicky.
So we've got 5 names on this list, and they're definitely the ones that are kind of being thrown out there a lot right now. The first one on the list, I can't believe this name is being shopped around. Mm-hmm. But apparently it's because he has made it very clear to Nashville, I do not want to come back next year. And that if you look, what's coming out is basically him saying he was so upset when Victor Arvidsson was traded away to the Kings.
Yeah, I guess so.
He, online, he was livid. Yeah. And apparently he has said he doesn't want to come back. So don't be surprised if Philip Forsberg heads off to L.A. Could you imagine how scary that would be with a Philip Forsberg, Deneau, and Victor Arvidsson line?
That would be gross.
L.A. is back on the rebound in a scary way.
Yeah.
And who knows? So you've got that name on the list. There's a few teams that would obviously really like him, but that's a high price rental fee, I would assume.
Yeah, I feel like if they were going to be doing a move for him, it would be with he's got to sign sort of thing. Like the deal of if he doesn't sign, then you take on a crap ton of this money because it would have to be one of those the trade isn't quite as hefty, but there is some. But if he re-signs, then it's that second or third becomes a first type deal. Yeah, they've got to have some sort of caveat with that. But no, it'd be interesting to see what he can garner too, because he's been good. He's been consistently good, and in the playoffs, he's great. But throughout the seasons, he's a good player. He's never really cracking the top 15 in points for a bit. So it'll be interesting.
He's got 5 seasons above 50 points, and he's kind of been, and then you look at the 1 year that he didn't, that COVID shut down. He only played 63 games, and then last year he only played 39. So he's one of those players that, he's got fairly decent playoff numbers on the 1 year he played 13 games and had 16 points. The year they went to the Cup, 27 games, 16 points. So he can improve teams.
Ooh, I hope that they trade him. If they are going to trade him, I hope that if there's a Kadri trade, the Kadri goes first. I hope Kadri goes second. I hope they trade Forsberg first, because if there's numbers that are going to be relatively similar, minus this year, it's Forsberg and Kadri. I feel like those are pretty similar numbers.
Yeah, because right now, Philip Forsberg, 38 games, 26 goals, 18 assists, 44 points. That is a massive boost. Obviously, a UFA next year, $6 million cap hit. For some teams, I know everybody's talking, we talked about it a lot last week, either Giroux or Pavelski. Maybe the Avs just say screw it and just super load up, get a player off of a potential playoff rival. So he's one of those players that I don't think he will go east.
No, I don't think so.
I think he's going to stay out west, and that is scary. Do you want to look at some of the other names here?
This is the one I wanted to talk about quite a bit, and this was
Okay.
Marc-Andre Fleury. So, as you can...
Former Vezina winner traded for a player not in the NHL anymore.
No, not former Vezina. Current reigning Vezina winner.
Reigning. Yeah.
Playing for the Chicago Blackhawks, who are not at all the Chicago Blackhawks that they used to be, which is a good thing, I think we can all agree on at this point. But he is not getting the love there. He's not happy. You can tell he's not happy. It's bad when you can see Marc-Andre Fleury is mad, because he doesn't show that emotion often. He's generally a very happy person, very friendly and outgoing. He doesn't seem that way there. So he's clearly not thrilled to be playing there. I don't think he's ready to retire. I think if he is going to retire, he's probably going to sign on one day in either, probably not Vegas, but maybe in Pittsburgh. But there's rumblings and rumors of Fleury to Colorado. And that...
Oh, I haven't heard that one.
Now, it's nothing is substantiated or anything, and it might just be, hearsay, but that is intriguing. There's a lot of talk of Darcy Kemper's play and people being nervous, which I'm like, what in the holy hell are you talking about? He is 15th in the league for save percentage after being second last place at the start of the season. So clearly he's doing okay. You don't need to replace Pavel Francouz because he's in 6th place for save percentage, so he's doing okay. So I doubt it'll happen there, but the one that concerns me is I think the Minnesota Wild has been in the conversation, and I don't like that. Because I don't...
Well, we know he won't go to the Capitals, because apparently the Capitals have just been after him nonstop, and he was like, I will not play for your team.
Yeah.
So, which is nice to see, because obviously the Pittsburgh-Washington rivalry kind of runs deep, so maybe he's just wanting to keep wrestling term kayfabe alive in that one. Yeah, because if you go to Minnesota, their number one goalie,
Cam Talbot.
He's still pretty good, though. He's 17, 12, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
But then their backup, you keep scrolling. Cam Talbot, I forgot he was with them. Mm-hmm. Their main goalie, 31, 19, and 11. Yeah. So the only reason why he would go there is if somebody like Cam Talbot is shipping out. And unless Cam Talbot is going back to Edmonton, I don't know if that happens.
Yeah, I don't know. And that's the other one that I wanted to talk about, actually. It's fun that you brought that up, is I think that unless he's got a no move to Canada, I think that we might see Marc-Andre Fleury as an Edmonton Oiler.
Yeah, the Oilers are in such a weird position, and I can go to this if you want in the middle of kind of the trade bait talk, because I had said to Pat earlier that there's something with Edmonton and the Rangers that I want to talk about. And the more you look at the stats, take a look at Shesterkin's stats. He is he at this point right now, he should win the Vezina and the Hart. I am sorry, Huberdeau. It is Shesterkin's to win. The New York Rangers, without him in net, are Philadelphia Flyers level hockey team this year. They do not make the playoffs without Shesterkin in net. If he is a league average goalie, they are not in a playoff position. If the Edmonton Oilers had a league average goalie, they would be in a playoff position. Could you imagine the Edmonton Oilers and the New York Rangers are the exact same team, except one has a good goalie?
I don't think that's the case. I really don't think so. I think New York's a better team.
Why do you not think so?
Because New York's got better depth than Edmonton. Edmonton has 2.5 players, if you want to combine Nuge, Kane, and Hyman all together to create the half. Whereas you've got Chris Kreider, who's leading goal scorer still. Is he still the leading goal scorer? I think so.
No, Leon Draisaitl is.
Okay, well, there you go. So you've got Chris Kreider, you got Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, you've got Lafreniere, Capo Caco. You've got a lot of talent on this team. Yeah, Adam Fox. What?
The Capo Caco is not having a great season.
No, but at the same time,
neither is Lafreniere. He's got the pieces of it. If you go head to head on the top players on both of those teams, Adam Fox is like the only difference maker aside from in net. Darnell Nurse is so heavily overpaid. He is a very good player, but you combine him on a line with somebody like Evan Bouchard, that's kind of they match up to what Adam Fox would be. Yes, he's tied for defenseman in points right now, but up front, you look at the depth, that's a very similar team between New York and Edmonton. When Nuge is playing half decently, he's up in that category. We were talking about this yesterday. How is he at 700 games in the NHL already? That is ridiculous. Defense, the New York Rangers have a tiny bit of an edge because of Fox.
Well, Fox and Keandre Miller.
If New York has average level goaltending in the NHL, they do not have a shot at making the playoffs.
Well,
if the Edmonton Oilers had league average goaltending, they're in a playoff spot.
Well, yeah,
if they had goaltending to the level of Shesterkin, because these two teams are so similar, they would probably be up near Colorado levels of points right now.
No, I completely disagree that, because like what you're saying is if Edmonton had Igor Shesterkin, they would be up at Colorado. No, that completely disproves what you just said, that they're the same team, just with, if they had the same level of goaltending. Because the defense on New York is better, period. Like, without a doubt, it is hands down better. There's no doubt in my mind with that. Because they're not getting shelled with shots. They're not seeing the same volume of shots, I think. I don't know. I haven't actually looked. But I can't see them being that close to Edmonton. They are the better team. No matter what, they are the better team, not even counting the goaltending situation there, in my opinion. I think that if they swapped divisions, Edmonton would be getting demolished, and New York would be beyond blowing out that division.
And that, to me, it all comes back to goaltending.
Well, yeah,
look
that's a
at
team
the Oilers'
member.
Goaltending. Like, they think they have it under Woodcroft. They get a few wins in a row, and then suddenly Mike Smith goes back to letting in 5+ goals in a few games. Like, they can't figure out their goaltending. Mm-hmm. That is the Edmonton Oilers' biggest problem. If Shesterkin is not in net, the Rangers are terrible. They have to play like the Oilers. They have to try and outscore their problems, and they can't.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm saying they're going to move for
Oilers.
Fleury.
The Edmonton Oilers and the New York Rangers are the exact same team, except one has a Hart caliber Vezina goaltender. The other team has I believe 3 goalies who are sub 900 save percent.
No, no. It's just because Edmonton has one player, maybe 2 if you want to call Draisaitl, which I don't think, like, I'm still on the fence on whether or not the 2 of them can live independently and still kill it. I know, I'm still one of those people. But it's been proven that if you absolutely shut down just McDavid, you win the game, period. You can't do that in New York, regardless of who's in net. If you shut down Panarin, you still have Mika Zibanejad, who is scary good. You still have Chris Kreider, who for some reason is suddenly scary good. You still got these people that can put points in, whereas Edmonton doesn't have that. They hemorrhaged money for Nugent Hopkins, hoping he'd be good, but he's not doing well. Kyler Yamamoto, I want him to do well, but he's all right. He's doing okay. You've got this team that's broken fundamentally in the Oilers that need to figure out how to play hockey again, because
if
they remember
goaltending, they make the playoffs though.
Yeah, and that's why I said they're going to do that with Marc-Andre Fleury, because they have zero support in the back end, they have minimal support in defense, and they have a couple good players up front. New York is pretty solid up front, has pretty good defensemen, and then they also have this incredible goalie. I don't think no. They are not the same team.
Igor Shesterkin is 24-5-0 this season. He has a save percentage of .939. That is unreal. Mike Smith, 5-6-0 and .891 save percentage. I didn't have the time to pull up the other goalies here. The more you look at the teams, the way that they play, the way that to me, they are almost identical teams, except there is a goaltender that is competent in net. Yeah, Koskinen may have 17 wins. His save percentage is under .900. The only reason why the New York Rangers are sitting where they are is because of Igor Shesterkin.
I don't think so.
Sorry. Stuart Skinner is at a .913, but he still gets shelled. Like, it doesn't. I don't think that's the case. I really don't think so. I don't think that math works. That's my take on things. You look at the two teams, to me, aside, like, Adam Fox to me is the only, like, player that you look at that you go, what a difference. But then at the same time, if McDavid is having a half decent game, he can cancel out most players on any team. We're starting to see other players on the Oilers under Woodcroft kind of starting to show a bit more of that spark. Like, if the Oilers have an average save percent of .910, .915, they're in a playoff spot. If Igor Shesterkin is not performing at a .94, if he's an average goaltender, they are not in a playoff spot. The only difference between the Oilers and the New York Rangers is one has a good goaltender, the other doesn't. Everything is almost identical. That's the way that I see it.
You are wrong. That is not, it's no. And I mean, we're going to go back and forth, but like, there's nothing that you can show me that will prove that to be true. Nothing. Not a single thing.
I'll dig some stuff up after and bring it towards you. We'll bring a little bit more stats in. It was a little too busy to go all in on it.
Mikko Koskinen has played 4 less games and has seen less than 200 less shots. Okay? 4 less games, less than 200 less shots.
He's also a bad goalie. We've known that for years.
I know. But I'm also saying that they're pretty much in the exact same situation there, but New York is still killing it in comparison to that entire division. That division is so difficult. And Edmonton is in a very easy division by comparison. And they're struggling.
It was an easy division. Calgary, they're unreal right now. Vegas, they're a super strong team. Yeah. LA, they have come back. Nobody wants to play against Anaheim right now. Vancouver's still meh. And then obviously you've got San Jose and Seattle. The beginning of the year when we were looking at the Pacific being like, this is the worst division in hockey, that doesn't quite exist anymore. The Metro is so top heavy that the bottom 4, they offset it. The Metro literally eats the Islanders, Philly, and New Jersey alive for half their points. It feels like on most nights.
Okay, so goals for. If we're going to be looking at goals for, if you want to talk
20 more for Edmonton.
Exactly. 20 more for Edmonton. Same amount of games played.
Yep. And almost a difference of 40 goals against. That is huge.
Oh boy.
The Rangers are plus 24 on their goal differential. That is because of Igor Shesterkin. The Edmonton Oilers are plus 5 somehow. That is the most insane stat that somehow they are plus. That team should be a negative goal differential, even though they're one of the top teams in the league for goals for.
I said a bad word. I'm looking at the wrong season. 1 second.
Your Pat's trying to argue against me, and he's looking at last year when the North Division existed, and the...
No, I was going to say, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. So now am I looking at, 21-22, games played, goals, what is
50,
it,
and
goals for?
the Oilers have one more game at this point. Obviously, they lost the last game before we did this podcast. They're 6-4 in their last 10. The Rangers are 6-3-1 in their last 10. Goaltending... The biggest argument for the Oilers, it's not, well, they need more scoring. No, they don't. Their defense, yeah. It's the goaltending. What is the one thing that saves the Rangers night in and night out? Their goaltending. To me, as I said, I can see the argument where it's like, you're an idiot for thinking this, but as you dive deeper and you compare things, it's just, sometimes a team is going to have a goalie that is going to be unreal. The New York Rangers have it this year. They have it in an unreal way. But if suddenly Igor Shesterkin gets hurt, New York Rangers do not make the playoffs. They will get leapfrogged by Washington in a heartbeat, and they will sink out of the wild card. That team, the back of the New York Rangers, is Shesterkin, just like the Oilers are hard carried by what McDavid does, and you can't outscore your problems if your goalies can't save, 9 out of every 10 shots. What you looking at there, Pat?
Oh, boy.
Has Pat started to look into the stats a little bit more, and you're starting to see my argument on this?
I really, really want to just change the topic because I don't want to say that you're right. I really don't, because I was so against it, and now I'm looking at the numbers, and holy crap!
The number, it is scary how similar these two teams are.
Oh boy, I don't like
except for goaltending.
Okay, well then they need Marc-Andre Fleury. So back to what we first got on.
If he goes there,
we need to get Marc-Andre Fleury into Edmonton. Good Lord.
This is why I didn't want to tell you any of this before, because I knew that if I didn't catch you off guard on this, that it would be a completely different argument, because I wanted you in real time to look at the stats and just have it suddenly dawn on you as, oh, wait, no, it can't be. And you dig in and you look more and more, and it's stupid. They are the same team, except one has a world-beating goalie.
I don't like this. I don't like it when Brian's right. Anyways, Kessel. Where's Kessel going?
Yeah, we'll talk the last few trade things here quick, and then I think we're gonna have to ship on out of this one, because we talked a lot about the Leafs, and then I really got Pat sidetracked.
I think we'll hop around to a couple things quick though, because there's a couple things I want to just quickly touch on too.
Okay.
So one, do you know who is in the last 10 games? Do you know who is second place for wins?
Second place for wins.
Because first place is
I know
Calgary.
Who's first.
They're in 10.
Yeah.
They've won 10 of 10. So who's won 8?
Who has won 8? My brain wants to say Dallas?
Nope. Columbus Blue Jackets.
Okay, yeah, they are
8-2-0.
And then what's one of my notes on our show prep list? Laine is unreal right now. He is one of those players, when he gets hot, he is probably the most prolific goal scorer in the NHL.
He is probably...
We saw that, 2 years ago Winnipeg?
See, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that at all, but now we're here, so here we go. I had Patrick Laine on my fantasy team, and I sat him the night that he scored, what was it, 5 goals?
5 goals. Won that lady $1 million.
5 goals, and he was on my bench. And then I played him for like 3 weeks straight, and he got me nothing.
And he never scored.
And then I went, you know what? I'm trading him. And the first game he played after I traded him, he got a hat trick. And I was so mad. I do not like him simply for that reason, but I also love his fit. He knows how to rock a suit, even if it's the weirdest thing, and it makes him look like a villain from a weird movie.
I love his like Patrick Laine vibe, style, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
He just doesn't care because he knows he's that good that
The confidence
it
is
doesn't
great.
matter. Columbus, everybody thought that they were going to be the kind of Arizona Coyotes of the East when they started trading away players, when they lost Seth Jones, Cam Atkinson. They bring in Voracek, who's been what a resurgence on what looks like gritty on ice.
Yeah.
And some of their young players starting to play. Max Domi starting to play well again. So that's the
really
thing.
good.
As I said, if Shesterkin goes down, Columbus could easily crawl their way in. They're a 2% right now to make the playoffs, and they basically have to stay on this kind of streak to do it.
I think it's
everything's going.
It's possible. They're playing really well. They're playing smart, I think, is the best way to do it. And by that, I mean they're either winning by 7 goals or losing by 7 goals, or winning in overtime over the Leafs. But yeah, I think it was Sarah Sivian who tweeted that out, that how is Columbus somehow always either winning or losing by 7 goals, and then they did it literally their next game. So keep an eye on Columbus. That's some pretty entertaining hockey there, which you don't really get to say a lot about Columbus. So yeah, good for them. It's nice
not
to
since
see.
the early Rick Nash years.
Yeah, it's really nice to see. The other thing I wanted to quickly touch on too, unless we wanted to go somewhere else, and just because I'm a Colorado fan, I wanted to talk about this quickly, and it was Nathan McKinnon doing the slash and not getting any sort of repercussions for it. So this is the second time that we've had a bit of a conversation about something kind of crummy that he did and didn't have any repercussions on it. And that is like back-to-back podcasts, because he did that to Nolan Patrick, who is skating again in a no-contact jersey, but good to see. And now he took a slash at center ice against, he went for the Boston player with a double-handed chop, which is a penalty, and hit the ref, but not even really hit, like barely hit him. And then actually went up and apologized almost immediately afterwards once the play ended. So it's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of it's that happening back to back with McKinnon. There's been a few, like, you don't want to say kind of iffy hits where something hasn't happened, but there's been a few of them lately. Mm-hmm. And out of nowhere, the Colorado Avalanche are becoming what looks to be the biggest villain to every other franchise in the NHL, because it's like their stars are doing these things and they're not getting penalized for it. Like, they're not getting fined, nothing's happening, and they're just rocketing up the list for points. So don't be surprised as we get closer to the trade deadline, to the end of the season, if we see another thing like this. The narrative of the Avs are not the like, oh, everybody jump on their bandwagon. It's everybody's going to want to see the Avs lose because they've become this villainous figure.
Well, see, the thing is, though, is in previous seasons, they have been penalized for this, which is why it's confusing to me, because, like, yeah, Nathan McKinnon should, like, I think everybody's in agreement that even if it was kind of, who knows, it might have been a fluke that he hit Nolan Patrick in the head, he still should have at least got a fine. Nathan McKinnon probably also should have got a fine for accidentally, even if it was an accident, accidentally hitting the ref. You don't do those things in the game. You look at last season, Landeskog got banned so many times. You had Rantanen getting huge fines for diving, which Michael Bunting just got as well. You've got Kadri obviously just being Kadri. So I don't know what happened.
You know what this screams to me? Kadri's going to do something, and he's going to get like a 30-game suspension because they're going to be like, "You Avs got away with a few too many things."
Yeah, he's
and
going
they're
to
throw the book at him.
He's going to have to play the cleanest hockey ever seen on ice. Like, plain and simple, he is going to have to just stand still like Ovechkin waiting for a slap shot one-timer. Just, that's it. He's going to have to just hands at his side, skating, just barely gliding across the ice, going nowhere near anybody, hoping somebody passes him the puck. Like,
he's gonna get suspended for something now. I can guarantee it, because it's one of those weird things where it's just weird that it's happening, but you can already see that narrative starting on hockey Twitter of the Avalanche being these like villains. It's like they can't keep getting away with this is what's coming up.
And like, it sucks because what they're doing, I agree, there should be a penalty involved, but they're not being penalized. So then all of a sudden the Avalanche are getting this focus on them when it's really the Department of Player Safety. It's really them that are creating this villain, because
don't look at the man behind the curtain, Pat.
I know, but you look at like all the other teams that do things like this and they get penalized for it. So why is Colorado not? They should be. There should be financial or game penalty or a game. I keep saying penalties because that's the vernacular, really. But like,
it's a match penalty in like every other sport
100%.
On the planet, basically.
So, like, I agree. McKinnon should have been suspended or at least fined for either one of those. Like, it's baffling to me. But like to say that
he wasn't.
I know
they're starting to look like the NHL is favoring the Avs. Be like, well, they got to keep winning.
But you know what?
That's how it looks to other fan bases.
Don't worry though, because we're recording this on Thursday night, and tonight the Leafs are playing the Minnesota Wild. So when the Minnesota Wild do something again, because that's what they do, and not get any sort of suspension or penalization whatsoever, then the attention's going to shift back to Minnesota. But
Minnesota's going to play the cleanest game you've ever seen, and
Yeah,
Pat's
no,
going to
that's-
just be screaming on Twitter like, "I promise they're a dirty team."
No, that's an oxymoron. A clean game by the Minnesota Wild? No, that'll never happen. I'll eat a shoe.
You
before
watch.
that
The Leafs
happens.
the Leafs are not going to go on the power play a single time tonight. Now, just watch.
I don't know. It's the Minnesota Wild, because we don't see very many games. Like, it's very rare that you get to watch a Minnesota Wild game. When you do get to watch them, every single time the narrative after the game is over is, wow, they're a dirty team. Colorado, not so much. I'm not saying they're flawless. Absolutely not. Like I said, they all should have been, there should have been suspensions or financial penalties involved. Absolutely. They should not be playing that way. It's sloppy, and it makes it crummy. So, but you look at like Winnipeg and you look at Minnesota, and the two of them, every single time, the narrative afterwards is, my goodness, they're so dirty. And yes.
But if they play in the playoffs, that's clean old playoff hockey.
Yes. So maybe that's what Colorado's doing. They're just getting ready to be crummy as long as possible. And Kadri, just please skate around in one of those bubble suits.
I think from there, Pat, it is time to move on.
Woo!
The Ice Prep Podcast presents Games of the Week.
Talk about probably two solid choices by us here. I think your game may have edged mine out just slightly, but not by much. Of course, my game was the Oilers taking on the Bolts, the Tampa Bay getting the 5-3 win in that one. I have the feeling if Edmonton had a competent goaltender, they probably would have won that one. See what I did there? Yeah, bringing back the same thing.
Just twisting that knife. That's good. No, that was a good game. Yeah.
It was, but the game between the Canes and the Pens, good pick.
Yeah, that one was a very, very good game. I unfortunately had to watch the recap of it because I was driving. But yeah, no, it was high. Like I just followed as much as possible afterwards, read a whole bunch about it, and it was just pure intensity between the two of them. That will be, if that is a playoff matchup, oh my goodness, please go to 7 games. Oh, I would eat that up. And I am neither team a fan, but I would love watching that fight. That would be amazing between both of them.
And then looking towards this week. I'm kind of throwing a curveball for what I'm doing, but I'll let you go first because chronologically yours happens before mine.
Yeah, no, actually, surprised you went for this one over another one, but the one that I'm going for is this coming Monday. That's right, I am choosing the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is very odd because I normally shy away from that because, you're probably already going to watch the Leafs. And, we talk about the Leafs because it's nearby, so we know a lot about the Leafs. But at the same time, I don't want to have to sit and watch the Leafs every day. So the Leafs are going to be taking...
I do, because it's the game my wife lets me watch.
Okay, well, there you go.
She's a Leafs fan.
It's pretty much the game I can watch, because most of the time, if I want to watch Colorado, like, they played Detroit, and I was like, ooh, I get to watch a Colorado game. It was exciting to me, because it's very rare to be able to finish one of their games. But I have decided on Monday, Toronto at Washington, that is going to be a very good game. That's going to be a telling game because, it could be yet another playoff matchup. There is a chance of it. And if that's the case, this could be an interesting matchup to watch. We're kind of in that time now where it's just like, okay, let's see how these matchups go because it's getting closer to pairing ups like that in the playoffs. So that will be a very good game. I am weirdly looking forward to it. Because I think that
it's always a fun game right now when you look and it's like, ooh, Ovechkin, and because he's chasing that scoring title at an unreal pace, and they're fun to watch. Apparently, Oshie's he's back skating once again.
Oh,
so
that's good.
Washington is like they're getting the band is back together essentially, and they're one of those teams that when they're rolling, it's like, oh yeah, that's why they've been at the top of the Metro for. 10 plus years now.
Yeah. No, and the game that I'm surprised you didn't choose, and this is just going to be a little tiny spicy one. I think the two of us agree that this will be a good game. Weirdly good. San Jose versus Vegas. Two teams that normally we wouldn't say together would be a game of the week, but San Jose's been doing pretty well, and Vegas is obviously Vegas, so I think that would be a good game.
There's obviously a little bit of a history there when it comes to the playoffs, and probably the weirdest sequence in playoff history I have ever seen in my life. The world's dumbest 5-minute major that turned the tide of an entire season and knocked the team out. Yeah. But not going for that. Yep. Who would have thought that we would see Winnipeg under a game of the week? They're not doing the best lately. They have their moments, but they are they're hosting a team that until recently they weren't even worth turning the channel on to even see what was happening. But they bring in a new coach, things start to look good, the players are having fun. Cole Caulfield is starting to score at a scary pace.
He has 10 points.
Suzuki's looking really good. Josh Anderson's starting to look good again. Jeff Petry's starting to play. Who would have thought I would have Montreal and Winnipeg as a game of the week? And this one is because of Montreal and not at all because of Winnipeg. Montreal is hitting that fun-to-watch hockey, and that is what this team has to do.
Yeah, and like you said, with Caulfield and Suzuki heating up, I mean, in the playoffs, they were a really good combo, the two of them there. So it's nice to see they've got that chemistry back. But I think I saw earlier that he had that Caulfield in his last 7 games, he has 10 points. Like, what is that? What happened? Where did that joke go?
He had 1 goal in his first, 32 under Dom Ducharme. And then Marty St. Louis comes in, and a super skilled, smaller player in his time is suddenly have fun. And you could tell that, especially Caulfield, he was afraid to try things because he'd get benched because of it, or he'd get scratched. And this new coach coming in has basically said, do whatever you want to do. That is what I fought my entire career to be allowed to do because he was so underestimated. Mm-hmm. So Montreal, now that they have things kind of figured out, they're fun to watch. Don't expect them to win all of their games, but if your team is having a bad season, there is nothing better than when the games are watchable. And to me, it is Montreal and Winnipeg had fun games last year. Obviously, you don't have Price, you don't have Weber. It should be a fun game. Not a good game, but a fun game.
It kind of reminds me now, just kind of thinking about it a little bit, Colorado, when they got rid of Duchesne after having that colossally bad season. Midway through, they dumped Duchesne, and they're able to turn it around a little bit. They were able to get some points. It's similar.
Yeah, there was, you could hear a lot of people making the argument, oh, they're like the Avs, and everybody was like, no, they're not, because Caulfield isn't playing well, Suzuki isn't playing well. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly a new coach comes in, and it's like, oh, right, they do have kind of some of those pieces. If they can turn things around, they've brought in new general manager, they've got the new coach, they've got a whole bunch of new staff, top to bottom. Mm-hmm. This could be they brought in the general manager that turned the Rangers around in 2.5 years. All sometimes it takes is a goaltender and a bit of luck, and who knows, maybe Marty St. Louis got that magic touch for that team. Habs, they're fun. That's why they're on my game of the week.
Yep, and they're not going to go to the playoffs. That's out of the question.
They literally can win every game from here on out, and they still, I believe, can't make the playoffs. Yeah. So there's not that aspect of it.
They're playing with nothing to lose. So that I agree with, that it'll be fun to watch.
I think that's a good place to wrap it up for this week. I still can't believe I changed Pat's mind on something. That doesn't happen very often.
I'm a stubborn person.
For the first time in 7 episodes, it wasn't snowing while we were recording, though shortly after we finish, we're supposed to get a lot more snow here, so it's just a Thursday thing apparently. I want to thank everybody for listening. Episode 15 of Ice Prep Podcast. Anything to add, Pat, before we head out?
Not a lot. Just stay safe. Don't doom scroll. Right now, things are tough. I mean, we don't know when you're hearing this or whatever. So if you can, take a breather from your phone. Go outside if you can, if it's not too cold out or rainy or whatever it may be. But just take time for yourself. Mental health is really, really, really challenging right now. I know myself. I've been struggling this past week. So taking time for yourself. Create separation between your phone and what is actually your real life right now.